give it up for Justin Angel.
When I was a young gay coming out in the early 80s, I dreamed of opening a homeless shelter for gay and lesbian youth. But it was the 80s, and I got sidetracked by HIV work and sidelined by drug addiction. During my early recovery in '96, I came across a fundraising flyer at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center to raise money for a homeless shelter in Hollywood. The fundraiser is a skydive-a-thon, which is just like a walk-a-thon in that you solicit donations from sponsors to do your thing. The difference is we're going to be jumping out of airplanes at 8,000 feet in the middle of the California desert. And not tandem skydiving as you might expect for first-timers. Oh no. Every single one of us is jumping out of the airplane solo. It was the 90s. And I've always dreamed of skydiving. So I registered and invited all my friends over for a fundraiser. My poor friends. They all questioned my sanity and my sobriety, both of which were fair game at the time. But every single one donated for my solo dive. The only training we got was 3 one-hour classes. The first one was aerodynamics, the second was flight safety, and the third one we practiced our landing maneuvers. The instructor says you do this at 100 feet, 200 feet, that at 100 feet, something else at 50, I don't remember. What I do remember is that at 20 feet, you yank your parachute down as hard as you can to put on your brakes for controlled landing. That's called a flare. That's why I remember that part. Well, I have monocular vision. I see close up out of my right eye and distance out of my left eye. So I really can't judge distances. So I'm a little worried. I asked the instructor, how will we know when we're at the right altitude to perform each of the maneuvers? He says, oh, don't worry. You'll have an altimeter strapped to your chest, and it'll tell you how far off the ground you are. So I stopped worrying. The morning of the jump, it was a clear blue sunny sky, perfect for skydiving. And I'm excited because I'm in the second plane in the air. We get to 8,000 feet, they open the jump door, and wind is whipping through the cabin. And I have never been more terrified and more excited than I was holding onto that strap, inching towards that jump door. And when I got there, I launched myself out of it with as much gusto as I could muster. And I spent way too many seconds tumbling in freefall until I righted myself. And then I looked down at my altimeter for the first time today. I was horrified to discover that though it's scaled in thousands of feet, the last 1,000 has 10 hash marks that are so close together, I cannot read them. Oh my God, I'm never going to know where 200, 100, or 50 feet are. I'm going to die. In order to calm myself, I drew on every meditative technique I had ever learned in sobriety. And when I hit 3,000 feet, I pulled my ripcord and my parachute opened without a hitch. To keep myself calm, I practiced my landing maneuvers over and over and over. Now I'm feeling pretty comfortable, and when I hit 200 feet, I do this, at 100 feet, I do that, at 50 feet, I do the other, and oh my God, the ground's getting really close. And so at 20 feet, I flared my parachute with as much might as I could. And then I looked up for the first time in a while, and I see a cloud of dust and a whole line of people running at me. And I think, I wonder what that's all about. Just then, a blast of wind yanked my parachute back open, dragged me backwards across the desert floor, where I tripped and I was airborne briefly again before slamming into the ground. But nothing hurt, so I tried to get back up, but my legs gave out and I fell back in the dirt. And as I'm lying there, I hear the ambulance siren coming for me. And I think to myself, oh my God, I am so glad I was in one of the first planes in the air. Because if I hadn't gotten into an airplane yet and I heard that siren, I most certainly would have never gotten into an airplane to begin with. And while the EMTs are strapping me down to a stretcher, I look up at the instructor and I ask, how did you know something was going to happen to me before I even landed? And he said, well, you did all the maneuvers right, but you did them all about 10 feet too high. And when you flared at 30 feet instead of 20, I knew you were in for some trouble. Great. So on top of excruciating pain, I'm now feeling embarrassed and a little foolish and a bit stupid for not looking at my altimeter before I jumped out of that airplane. The good news is, my injuries were minor, just a cracked coccyx and a broken wrist. And I'm thrilled to report that 25 years later, the LA Gay and Lesbian Center has built 180,000 square foot campus in Hollywood with 100 beds and 25 housing units. And I like to believe that by jumping out of that airplane for that very first fundraiser, that I've managed to manifest my young gay dream.